from America's heartland, this is GJRB, Clinton, Iowa. The following is a GJRB podcast presentation. Now, GJRB presents The Last 7 Days. In this time of lawlessness and utter chaos, there's a program that puts it all into perspective. This is the program where men and women gather to discuss current events and how it lines up with Bible prophecy. And now, The Last 7 Days.
We're going to go ahead and start. Yeah, we'll do it here. So, first one I have is Oprah Winfrey and Stephen Colbert takes turn mocking God, Jesus, and the Bible on Late Show. So Oprah
tells you what
Betty?
Oprah.
He's going to do it here. You want to move over?
Oh, okay.
Oprah appears at Stephen Colbert's show, and they're talking about Oprah running for president.
Please.
And
Great, isn't
so,
that wonderful?
Hey, that'd be comfortable. Oprah and Hillary.
And I think it was probably set up because Oprah says, well, she was praying and she was asking God whether or not she would run for president. And then, and so Colbert, who's an atheist, shines up on the ceiling of their stage. They shine up this kind of animated God, this kind of a supposedly God is speaking, and he says, well, first of all, it says it's in an animated form God appears, and this is, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but
Okay. I can kind of see it,
yeah. In a Jim Carrey-esque hallucination, flashing gang symbols.
Oh, jeez.
Jim Carrey?
Yeah, kind of like a Jim Carrey-esque,
Oh,
you know.
no.
Jim Carrey.
No, I mean, that's what it looks like.
Got a face. Looks like Moses, actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Moses.
And
It's like, come on. That's why I don't watch it.
he was shocked. God was shocked to know that someone like Oprah Winfrey would know who he was. And he said, I can't wait to tell Jesus. This is supposedly the Father shows up. So this is the God that...
Throw it away. You got anything else to throw away?
I wonder, you always hear those stories about people seeing Jesus in the clouds or on their microwave ovens. So I wonder what she was drinking or smoking. Probably both.
Yeah. There's 40 colleges in the United States that requires their student athletes to be tracked 24/7.
Imagine
Well,
that.
here's the reason
Make
why.
sure they're doing everything.
Exactly. These are student athletes. There's 40 colleges. Some of the colleges are Auburn, Central Florida, Indiana, Missouri, are all some of the colleges that they track their student athletes. Basically, they give the athletes a college scholarship, so they want to know that they're in class and getting their money. Well, the University of Missouri is taking it one more step. They're requiring their freshmen next year, all freshmen will have to be tracked.
Tracked.
In other words, you're going to
They
put
do that, they track it on your phones.
Oh, okay. Not implanted anything. Not
yet.
Not implanted.
Not yet.
But it's on their phones. And they have to, every freshman coming in has to submit to having the University of Missouri put a tracker on their phone.
Misery.
So, how much longer is it before the mark of the Antichrist, tracking all of us.
Yeah.
Did that start this year?
What?
Wow.
According to WHO, World Health Organization, there's more than 1 million new cases every day of sexually transmitted diseases. 1 million new cases a day.
Wow.
In the world.
Some of them are not curable.
Exactly. 1 million cases of sexually transmitted diseases diagnosed each day.
And you don't hear about that anymore.
Well, that would pretty well take care of the United States in a year.
Yes,
Here,
it's true.
A couple months. A week or something.
Well, I'll just tell you, there's one guy here in Clinton, and he had AIDS. And he knowingly went and had sex with all kinds of girls here in Clinton.
Yeah.
And now they're HIV positive.
Boy.
And then, that he ended up dying, but he almost got a lawsuit for killing people. That's like murder.
Yeah.
You know you're doing it to them.
Yeah. They've been advertising some drug on television now where you take it, and if you have HIV, it keeps you from being detected. So then you can, you may have some bad things you want to do with that, or you may want to get a job that you wouldn't get otherwise. So that's the latest thing I've heard about.
Yeah, they're advertising.
Well, there's-
of course. Transgenders, lesbians, and the commercial was really long for this drug,
Yeah.
and they showed all of these people.
Well, Michael,
They probably paid for that ad.
AIDS.
To,
the guy that
Magic John.
he's had it for years.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, but
he had many women.
But he's lived longer than anybody with AIDS.
And the reason being is he has full body
Because
blood transfusion.
He has money.
oh yeah.
Full body blood
the name.
transfusions.
The name, that's why I'm sick of hearing about Kobe Bryant.
What's that?
Because all these other people died too. It wasn't
Well, the
just
thing
Kobe
about it is,
Bryant.
some of them have stated that you have to wonder about that helicopter. First off, they should have known there was something wrong with it, and if there was
They
something
should've
wrong
went up
with
in
it,
the
should
fall.
not have not went up.
Well,
Yeah, but sometimes those things
Maybe
happen.
they insisted that they go.
Yeah, but sometimes those things don't happen until midair.
Maybe somebody insisted they go.
Nothing wrong with it, just,
Helicopters are
He was
not
flying in
safe,
fog.
and
He was-
especially in fog.
You know what? I didn't know.
He went up in
So-
fog.
Yeah, but fog, you can start out daylight and hit fog on the way.
Yeah, is that what happened?
Probably.
I didn't know.
Well, California, depending that part of California, is that
He went from
mountainous area?
Disneyland, and
Lakers.
he's been doing that for years. In fact, he landed right in his yard a lot of
Except for my
times.
grandfather.
I'm not
Because
even.
in California,
But
there's some of
I
that
mean,
mountainous
I
area.
really
When you're in a
feel
mountainous
bad
area, you
for
run into
all of
fog
them.
because
Not
the
just
mountains are so
him.
high that
I
the
mean,
clouds
there were
are going to
other
be
families. There were two other
coming
coaches.
down.
There were two other coaches.
They don't know. They
There was a
think
lady
it's
coach
instruments.
and her daughter.
yeah, well, there's
There was,
two problems that was wrong
him
with
and
the
his
helicopter.
daughter, and then there
Oh,
were
no.
two other
The
people.
one problem was is they don't have a black box.
Yeah, he died too.
There's no
They all
black
died.
box.
Everybody died.
So they won't know what exactly happened. And
They want to stay flat on the ground, no flying up in the air.
no, they
I
can
don't wanna
be,
be
they can be
in-
put in, but it's
tell you that.
expensive. It's to put the
No, I wouldn't want to be on a train.
No.
but no.
maybe you're right.
That'd be nice to go on a train.
Because it's the other problem. Because the other problem, they didn't have no ground clearance warning.
Go down and
Well,
short trip. It's
yeah,
like a
I know,
Disney
but when you go from flat to mountains, it doesn't tell. There's a ground clearance device where it shows you how close you are to ground, and that costs about like
Been on that trip?
No, it feels like a
$20,000 to $40,000 depending on the.
Really?
And it didn't have that either.
It does.
It didn't have the ground clearance where like like on planes,
Couldn't you
it'll say,
sometime go on a small
warning,
trip?
warning, you're getting close to the ground, pull up. But it
Just a
did
small
drop
one. You don't have
350
to go
feet
a long
in
way.
6
You can
seconds.
go to Galesburg and go to Chicago.
And
Well, that sounds like something failed then.
so I don't know, but the thing that
That's where we went to.
the greater
Galesburg
story
and
is
went to-
about sports in general. And I'm thinking about, I don't know if I can do it this next coming Thursday, but I'm going to try to do it next coming Thursday. Because obviously it's a tragedy to see young people and people die in a helicopter accident. But there's a lot more to this story than what you see in the news. Yes. And I'm hoping that maybe the first Thursday of the month we are going to meet in the sanctuary, and we're going to actually show some videos. And maybe the first Thursday of the month we're going to have videos. And so I'll let you know whether or not we're going to do it or not. But there's a lot more. I mean, right now the big news is the coronavirus.
Yes.
The impeachment of Trump, the peace plan, and Kobe Bryant dying. So there's actually 4 major stories. And to show you how big this is, Kobe Bryant has dominated the news until, for a couple of days. Over all the other 3 news
Well, I
stories.
didn't hear that bad because Bill Gates had predicted something about an epidemic.
Well, he did more than predict. So today we're gonna
He did more than predicted.
He did more than predict.
Uh-oh. He's in trouble.
Bill. Okay. Well.
Bill Gates is tripping himself.
I'm not a smart guy. I'm just not into it. And I'm sorry that he died and the other people died and the pilot died. But if any one of you guys here died, I would be more upset about that than somebody that I've never seen
absolutely.
him play. I've never watched him on TV even. I'm sorry that it happened, but
I might have played it, seen him play once.
crazy about
That's because we've elevated these athletes to gods.
You look at what killed all that people that got killed in wars and stuff like that. They don't even get the publication at all. I don't know if our government turned back on the veterans after they returned home, and now these little places that help out the veterans are the ones taking the brunt of it. This should be the United States that had you go and get into it, and they should take care of you.
On top of that, the veterans that return home get treated like garbage.
Yeah, they
Me too.
Well, he got
because I think the difference is that we entertain them, whereas people that go to war, they're only keeping people safe.
Yeah, but you can't see that. But you can't see something that they're keeping us safe, but you can't see that.
Yeah, you can't enjoy that until another country takes
Exactly.
Has any of the other families spoke up?
No.
Spoke up
Oh,
about it?
plus he got in trouble with sexual immorality many years ago.
Who did that?
Kobe Bryant.
Yeah,
He got
He's
away.
having sex
You
with
got away
women.
with it, settled out of court.
Yeah,
He's had a.
yeah.
he got in a lot of trouble for that.
You know, that's
I ain't never
one of
heard
the
anything about
problems,
that
you know. I'm sure he has lots of money, and fame.
His wife's got
But with those things, he had some power.
Plus he had 3 other daughters.
Well, you know, when
Yeah.
those things
One of his daughters
control
died
you,
to
you're
get
going to
3
do things that are immoral because hey, you're God. You should be able to do whatever you want to do.
I think that's what
I
they
really
think.
think that's Bill works.
That's not only how they think, but that's how they're treated. They're treated as gods. So today I want to talk a little about the coronavirus.
You need that?
Bill and Malinda Gates Foundation and others predicted up to 65 million deaths via coronavirus in simulation ran 3 months ago, before there was any coronavirus.
So did they give them something?
Yeah, probably coronavirus.
First of all,
I'd be
let's
suspicious of
just
that.
lay this out. That apparently what happened was, I don't know if it's in this article, but a man in Saudi Arabia was the first one to get the coronavirus. And that virus was captured and transferred to Canada to a level 4 laboratory. Now, a level 4 laboratory is a laboratory that holds the most deadly diseases. So I want you to think about this.
What?
Level 4 laboratories, and they're rare. There's only a few of them in North America, and a few of them around the world. But they're level 4 laboratories. They hold the deadliest viruses.
Were they trying to kill Chinese?
Well.
So they were rigging this disease up to begin with.
This is the laboratories where Ebola
Started.
This is where they are kept at. They take these viruses and they bring them in these laboratories and they hold on to these viruses.
Probably in an attempt to make vaccines.
To an attempt to make vaccines, exactly. So the coronavirus is right next to the Ebola virus at level 4 laboratories for
Wonderful.
starters.
Terrific.
So, in order to create a vaccine, you have to patent that virus. You have to patent it.
Wow.
And the reason why you have to do that is because you hold the patent rights to that virus. So that virus cannot be analyzed by anybody else. I mean, if you can't patent a virus, then 100 companies could be working on an antidote. Okay,
Which would be a good idea.
Well, yeah, but when you patent it, then that gives the one company who owns the patent rights to be able to put a vaccine out, to be able to work on a vaccine. Bill Gates purchased the patent to the coronavirus. Okay? Yeah, he got the patent.
So that only a certain...
So only him and his laboratories can work on it. In 2015, the UK government, funded by Bryant Institute, filed an application for a patent for the live coronavirus, which was approved in 2018. The primary funder of the Bryant Institute was Bill and Malinda Gates Foundation.
Wonderful.
Specifically, the Bill and Malinda Gates Foundation donated $189,231 to the Bryant Institute in 2013 grant looking to improve our understanding of and effective use of current control tools and measures, including vaccines, against basically 2 infectious livestock diseases. And one of those was, it's the mad cow, and the other one was this coronavirus.
What about the bird one?
Well,
Bird flu.
This is diseases that can be transferred to humans.
The chicken thing. That killed a lot of chickens.
That's kind of
They're
an
winging a
interesting
prayer.
amount of money.
Winging a prayer for you.
Winging a prayer, yeah.
Isn't that the speed of light per second?
Yeah.
183,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
Now here's a question for
Well,
you.
it's always been
anyhow,
a little weird.
anyhow, it was used to promote a one health agenda. You know, this is what we're heading towards: a one world government, a one world religion, a
And
one
one
health
health.
agenda.
Help
Gates being Gates, right?
the health.
So in other words, they could probably spread this disease and kill us
here's,
all, or what?
here's a question I have for you.
Well, they could
Okay.
if the wrong
All right.
person.
This becomes a pandemic, what do they call it?
Pandemic.
Pandemic. Now, then do they open up the floodgates for others, companies, even though he has a patent? Because if it
They
wipes
have
out
to.
the world, it doesn't
They
do
have to
anything.
buy the rights to examine that virus.
Okay, so the government just doesn't give an open door for them.
No, you buy the patent rights to it. You have the patent rights to it.
Right.
So if anybody else wants to develop a vaccine, you have to pay.
Okay.
You'll have to
Because
pay.
I thought maybe the government would make an exception on that only because if it wipes off half the civilization, it's not going to do you any good.
Well, see, here's the thing: is they've been already working on a virus. They've been already working on a vaccine for
Right.
the
Right. But
coronavirus.
most people that can do that to prevent a pandemic, you know, if you wipe out the world because other people can't use it or work on it, you know, if they don't, you know, that's not like what they call that. Wow, when they make laws, but they have other people that can. You know,
But see, here's the thing: whenever there's some sort of a major illness, what's the cure always runs out. Like whether you talk about flu vaccines or whatever, there's always a shortage.
Wasn't that the case in 1918 when there
It's
was
the
the
case
flu
every
pandemic?
time.
I might have gotten
He's,
I mean, I have to read out history, but
he's the kind of guy that I'm not sure why he does what he does, but I know they're into, you know, health for foreign countries and things. So in his mind, he might be thinking a one world health thing would be a good thing. But the possibilities of that being used against Christians or other groups, that'd be pretty serious, I think, you know, to put all the power into one place.
because you know the thing is,
I mean, you get more done, I'm sure, but I'm just not sure if
well, if you want to have this cure,
So-
they take the mark.
So 2 years ago, the Bill Gates Foundation basically bought the patent rights to the coronavirus. 2 years ago, before anybody knew about the coronavirus. Then on October 18th, 2019, 3 months ago, also before the outbreak, Bill and Malinda Gates Foundation and the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, the same Bloomberg,
Is it the same one?
of World Economic Forum co-hosted an event in New York where policymakers, business leaders, and health officials worked together to simulate the coronavirus outbreak. This is back in October. They were talking about a coronavirus outbreak.
Okay, what do they do? Do they name these after one virus is done? You know, one virus has come up, then they name the next one?
I don't know, but it's odd that
like
they
the
bought the patent
hurricanes.
rights 2 years ago, and then in October
That's what I was
they
saying,
had
yeah,
a major meeting to talk about simulating a coronavirus outbreak. Okay, it was titled Event 201, Pandemic, the highest level pandemic exercise. Dropped participants right in the midst of an uncontrolled coronavirus outbreak that was spreading like wildfire out of South America to wreak worldwide havoc. So the event was called Event 201. The event was called Event 201, and it was about what would happen if a coronavirus outbreak happened. In the simulation, the coronavirus resulted in the death toll of 65 million people within 18 months, according to John
The
Hopkins.
what?
65 million people within 18 months, according to Johns Hopkins University.
They caught her, they died from it.
Well, why weren't
Deaths
they working
resulted in deaths.
on a thing? If they knew about the virus, why were they not working?
They're
on
already
a
working on.
solution?
They're already working on a
Why
solution.
weren't they doing that?
But they're already working on a
Because
solution.
it started, basically what it is it started in China. Well, we didn't consider too much of it until we started trading corn with China. Then we figured we trade corn.
Yeah.
Okay, well, because it started in China, they figured they want to get ahead of that because they're figuring people were dying over in China and it might be released over here.
That's
So
why
they
they
started.
did that.
That's why they started, because we started trading with China. Corn, say.
So-
the virus got over.
So
they got ahead of it.
they bought the patent rights 2 years ago. Then 3 months ago, they said that if a coronavirus broke out, that it would kill 65 million people in 18 months. This is before, again, remember the first coronavirus didn't happen until December.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is still a month and a half before the first case.
So they brought these diplomats and all these people that were in China, they brought them back to the United States. They're only going to be in, what do you call it? Quarantine for 3 days.
Yeah.
It's usually, isn't it 5 to 7 days before? Huh?
Incubation period.
5 to 7 days, isn't it?
Well, for the average person, senators are not that
It
way.
probably depends on the disease.
Oh, they're different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they are. And they can go to an airport,
Oh,
a
they
senator
can, yeah.
can go in an airport and never be warned.
No.
They just go from point A to point B.
So-
Usually it's 7 days. They're only quarantining them. Because when we had measles, we were quarantined for 7 days.
No, that's,
Right.
3 days
All
is all
politicians
they're
are always
holding
different.
those
They never go
people.
by what we do.
That makes no sense.
And also
Dave
back in 2018, a professor from the Imperial College of London recently warned the coronavirus
As soon as they leave, they can come up
has the
with it.
same kill rate as the Spanish flu, which claimed lives between 20 to 50 million people in 2018. The event 2001 that was sponsored by the Bill Gates Foundation and the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. It promoted the answer was globalism as a solution to a pandemic, that we all need to work together, you know. In the video, Tom Ingersby of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security promotes globalism as a solution, saying there are problems emerging that only can be solved by global businesses and governments working together. Which all sounds
Imagine
hard to
that.
do when you got a
Says a
patent.
new world order to me.
You know
Of
that
course, you don't know about Korea because he just killed him, right?
okay. So.
Well, you think that's
So, well,
What about
here's the next
Korea?
story.
Well,
There's a whole timeline
did
here.
you see what happened today?
There's a,
Well, they had that people from China. They flew them over to Anchorage, Alaska.
What?
Uh-oh.
Anchorage,
yeah, they're
Alaska.
Oh,
flying
yeah,
up over
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Well, they did the
Thank-
test, but it was only, instead of quarantining them, they just did a test for 24 to 48 hours and flew them.
Yeah,
where
they're doing it in remote
They-
locations. Yeah.
remote locations. Yeah.
I want to,
So remember,
That's
in 2018,
Fairbanks.
2018,
Them poor people
the
down
They
in
had to fly
the Bill
to
Gates
from
Foundation,
Fairbanks to Anchorage.
the Bill Gates Foundation bought the patents, and then 3 months ago they had this event called Event 201 to promote the fact that if coronavirus broke out, there would be a major epidemic.
How come they didn't
Okay.
block all the airlines from going?
Yeah, I don't know. So,
Well, really, I mean,
Yeah.
stay away from China.
well, and there was,
Here's the timeline and
Okay.
yeah.
figure out
So
what they're doing.
So remember, the original case came from Saudi Arabia.
Oh, really?
The original case came from Saudi Arabia. They took that virus and they shipped it to Holland, and from Holland they shipped it to Canada. Canada has, as I said, this level 4 lab for the most serious illnesses. Well, let me read this. In June 13th of 2012, a 60-year-old Saudi man was admitted into a hospital in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, with a 7-day history of fever, cough, and shortness of breath. He had no history of cardiopulmonary or renal disease and received no long-term medications that did not smoke. An Egyptian virologist didn't know what it was, so he contacted other people from the Netherlands, this other doctor from the Netherlands, and that's how it transferred to the Netherlands. And from the Netherlands, they sent a sample to the Laboratory 4 in Canada. The coronavirus arrived in the Winnipeg facility on May 4th, 2013 from the Dutch lab. The Canadian lab grew up stocks of the virus and used it to assess diagnostic tests being used in Canada. Winnipeg scientists worked to see which animal species can be affected with the new virus. Remember, they had the Bill Gates Foundation bought 2 viruses because they thought it could affect animals and then go into humans. Then in last year, they discovered that Chinese agents were working in this laboratory and that they had sent samples of something. They didn't know for sure. They sent it to China. It could be SARS, it could be Ebola, it could be anything. And they busted this married couple that were working in this laboratory in China appears to be like Chinese agents, and they sent it to their lab. They have a lab in China, a level 4 China lab, wow. And it's in, guess what town?
Beijing? Where? Singapore?
Wuhan. Wuhan, where the epidemic
That's where it started.
So
they have a lab.
Wuhan.
Somebody.
Yes.
This is a movie plot.
The Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is a lab 4, is in the same city as the Wuhan seafood market. It's actually 20 miles away, but it's across town.
Seafood market.
It's actually right on a highway.
Oh, the seafood. There goes King's Buffet.
So
I can't eat seafood anyway. So.
I feel like I'm in a movie,
Not anymore. I can't eat it.
So
I seafood now.
This is an apocalyptic type movie. I'm telling you.
So this is what we know
The
so
plot
far.
thickens.
This is what we know so far is that way ahead of this, they had the foresight. The Bill Gates Foundation had the foresight to patent this virus and to get the rights to this virus to make antidotes for it. And then just 3 months ago, they warned how bad it could be. Now, what if it doesn't turn out to be that bad? But you see, this is the greatest promotion for this product that they're developing.
Taking safety precautions in a situation like that, even if it's bad or if it's not. So,
And that's, I thought, some interesting stuff about the coronavirus.
Yeah.
So, next thing is the peace plan in the Middle East. And sometime I'm going to do something about this one too, but the shocking development, Arab nations across the Middle East support Trump peace plan, tell Palestinians to return to negotiation table with Israel. So Trump has what he calls the deal of the century, and I can't support anything that's a two-nation solution because the Bible tells us we're not to divide up the land of Israel.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far this plan's going to get, but I can tell you that
we've all tried it.
I can tell you that, for instance, right today, Netanyahu is in Russia talking to Putin. Putin is the first world leader to be informed on the peace plan that Trump has come up with. So Netanyahu, who just saw Trump, is now today, Thursday, in Russia talking to Putin about the peace plan. And of course, the peace plan. The peace plan.
I'm recording with my phone. Right
the
now.
peace plan is, of course, a lot about what's going to happen on the Temple Mount. Well, part of the real benefits of the peace plan will be that they'll be able to establish a temple on the Temple Mount, which is a bad thing. But the Sanhedrin Assembly on the Third Temple brings representatives from the son of Ishmael. One of the things about this peace plan is, let's see if I got anything about that. I had something. One of the things about the peace plan is again, we're seeing the divide between Shiite and Sunni. The Shiites are the radical, the people that are the radical religion of Iran, probably Iraq, is turning that way because Iran is in control of the country. Syria, Turkey, Libya. And these are the countries that are outlined in Ezekiel 38. The countries that are not outlined as attacking Israel is Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabian Peninsula countries. And that would the United Emirates, Kuwait, and the such. Quarter. Anyhow,
Dubai.
Dubai, yeah, that's a city. But anyhow, the Sanhedrin is.
All right.
The Sanhedrin has called other countries, and they're Shiite countries, and also backing the Trump peace plan is all these other countries, Saudi Arabia, Quarter, the United Emirates. All these countries are backing the Trump peace plan. So the Sanhedrin says that they're bringing in sons of Ishmael. This past Sunday night, the Sanhedrin hosted a conference to discuss the role of Arabs and Muslims in the Third Temple. The conference featured a lecture by this Muslim guy, it looks like, a senior lecturer at the Department of Arabic at Barlar University. Dr. Kedar has frequently referred to the claim that Jerusalem is holy to the Muslims as fake news. Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Quran, and there's not a basis to believe that Jerusalem had any significance for Muhammad, and that's the truth. So this is how the eventually a temple is going to be able to work into Jerusalem on the Temple Mount, is because Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Quran. Now remember, the Quran was written in the 7th AD century. I mean, Jerusalem was around a whole lot long before that. There's really no real mention of Jerusalem. In early Islam, we see that assigning holiness to the Temple Mount was criticized as an attempt to introduce Jewish concepts into Islam. Early Islam was opposed to any attempts to connect Jerusalem to Islam, and they said that if we started connecting and putting importance upon Jerusalem, then that would make Judaism affect Islam. which is an interesting idea because that's exactly what's happening in Christianity, though we see it as a holy spot where Christ was crucified. You know, we do see that. But the temple, the building of the next temple, will come as a substitution to true worship of Christ, because it's going to be a reversion back. It's been a reversion back to the Judaic law.
And you kind of see that too.
You see it, yes.
Even without the temple being there, I've got various Christian friends from years ago. It seems like they're being drawn into Judaism.
Yes. And see, that's the thing. Once the temple is built, we're going to see a lot more Christians wanting to act more and more like Old Testament Jews. They're going to be, I mean, once the temple is built, then this will be the place to go for Christians. And you know, there's nothing wrong with seeing the symbolism behind the sacrifices, but they've been fulfilled in Christ. They've been fulfilled in Christ. So it's interesting. Remember, we always said, well, how is the Muslims going to let the Jews build a temple in Jerusalem? The argument from the Sunni side is that Islam criticized early on any elevation of Jerusalem because they thought it would affect Islam and try to promote Judaism into Islam. So this is going to be the approach of the Sunnis, is that, hey, why are we arguing about this Temple Mount at all? Because early on in the beginning roots of Islam, it was said that we should not promote the importance of Jerusalem, that we should not promote that.
That's kind of really weird.
So what they're trying to do,
until they built the mount.
so they're trying to, the Sunnis are trying to say, this is the true history of Islam, that we did not promote Jerusalem, that Jerusalem wasn't a big deal. So now with the Trump peace plan, it's easier to accept the Jewish people controlling all of Jerusalem. Because, by the way, that's what's in the peace plan, control of all of Jerusalem. The Palestinians actually get less land, okay? But there's still a two-state solution, which I don't agree with. But anyhow, the plan is for the Jews to have control of all of Jerusalem. And of course, they do technically have control of the Temple Mount now. But because Islam, the Shiites, says, wait a minute, the Dome of Iraq is like the fourth holiest site in Islam. That's why it's been a controversy. So the Sunnis are they're looking at their history and saying, look at this. We're not to promote Jerusalem. We're not to think that Jerusalem's special. So this is the crack that makes the Trump peace plan more acceptable, and it's also the thing that makes the building of the temple on the Temple Mount, which, by the way, I'm not even sure. I personally don't believe that the Temple Mount is where the Temple Mount's supposed to be built at. I don't really think it's the place. But anyhow, everybody else thinks it. Well, not everybody, but a lot of other people that are important does, and the Sanhedrin does. So they're bringing in Muslims from other countries, Sunni countries. They're bringing them in to talk about building the temple, because this is going to be promoted as a temple for all religions. It'll be a house of prayer for all nations, of course, which is a prophecy for the millennial temple. See, there's going to be 5 temples, and this is the building of the 3rd. The next one will be a millennial temple. So it will be a house of prayer for all nations, but it's not the temple that we're building right now. Now, can can it go from one to another? Yeah, I guess it can. I mean, if it doesn't be destroyed, but there's a good possibility it's going to get destroyed.
Well, the Antichrist, when he proclaims himself God, he's going to go in the millennial temple, is he not?
No, he won't make the millennial temple. The Antichrist will be cast in the lake of fire before.
Now, how's that going to... Yeah.
What temple do you think he's going to stand in? The Antichrist.
The third temple. The third temple.
There's one in the 7 years, and then there's one in the...
So Revelations 11. Well, let's just read. Let's read 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. Let no man deceive you by any means, that the day shall not come except there be a falling away first.
Good idea.
There'll be a falling away within Christianity, and that the man of sin will be revealed, the son of perdition. Then, when there's a falling away first, and then probably in the midst of that great falling away, or at least when it peaks, then the son of sin, the man of sin will be revealed, the Antichrist. And verse 4, who opposes and exalted himself above all that is called God, or what is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So the temple will be already in existence. Not, like I say, there's no plans, there's no drawings. It could be a tent, as far as it could be anything.
They could start out that way.
They could start out as a tent.
And in 6 months, they say they could build a whole temple in.
Yeah.
The dimensions in 6 months. Technology. But what's interesting is during the 6-Day Wars in 73, we took over the Temple Mount. Actually, we had the Dome of the Rock, but Moshe Dayan gave it back to the Muslims because he wanted more war.
Now let me read Revelations 11:1-2, and this gives you an idea when the temple is going to be built. This is something that nobody really talks about that much. Revelations 11:1-2. I haven't actually seen anybody talk about this recently. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, Rise, measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not. For it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months, 3.5 years. Okay, so if you take a look at that so it says take and measure the temple. Measure the temple. Well, measuring of the temple in the past was used not for building, but for christening. If you take a look at Samuel and Psalms, both places and other places, measuring the temple was used for christening. So when in Revelations...
So christening, was that like a ribbon cutting ceremony?
Yeah, it's like a ribbon cutting ceremony. So in Revelations 11, where God says, measure the temple, where the Gentiles will trod under for 42 months, it's for 3.5 years, and so it's the last 3.5 years. So the christening will come at the beginning of the last 3.5 years, at the same time in Matthew chapter 24 that tells us the Antichrist will go in and declare himself to be God.
So there might not even be a building, there might not even be laid out where the building is going to be.
You got to remember that the original temple, God's plan for the temple was the shape of a man.
Yeah.
A shape of a man. It had arms, it had legs, it had feet, it had a neck, it had a head. And when Herod rebuilt the second temple and made it look more glorious to win the favor of the Jews, he altered God's plan. And the Holy Spirit was no longer there.
Wow. Yeah.
Because when Jesus came, it was only a building and they were going through the ceremonies, but the Holy Spirit was not there. It's the same thing will happen in the future. When they build this temple, they don't have God's plan. There's no plan for to build the third temple. I mean, so they're going to build something, just whatever they think is appropriate. It may look like the second temple. I said it could look like the tabernacle.
Right.
Or it could start out as a tabernacle and go to a temple. Well, regardless, the original plan looked like a man because everything about the temple was a story about Jesus. All the sacrifices pointed to Christ. All the feasts pointed to Christ. There was 7 feasts. 3 in the spring represented the first coming of Christ. The fourth one, which is the Feast of Pentecost, representing the building of the church. And the last 3 represented the second coming of Christ. All the 7 feasts, all the sacrifices, from cover to cover, this Bible is about Jesus.
Right.
It's all about Jesus. And the law all points us to Jesus. So,
so if you go to that premise that the first temple was built about Jesus, the second temple, the shape of it and such will probably reflect man or even Satan.
well, the big, for instance, when Herod rebuilt the temple, for instance, he took out the neck. So when you looked at it, there was no neck anymore. He took out some other parts so that when you look, once Herod got done looking at it, it did not look like anything anymore. It didn't look like a man. It did look like a man, but when Herod got done, it looked more glorious, but it did not look like a man. Now, I got to say, the man looked kind of like the man that I would draw. Okay, but you can tell it had arms, it has legs, it has feet, it's got head, it's got a neck, it's got a body. It looked
like a stick man on steroids.
Yeah, it looks kind of looked like a stick man. I'm gonna tell you, I'll tell you what it kind of looks like. It kind of looks like one of those 50s sci-fi robots is what it kind of looked like, or the Lost in Space robot guy, the robot. But anyhow, the point that I'm trying to make is that it appears like right either at the initial beginning, at the christening, or just a little bit past, but right initially at the christening of the temple, the Antichrist will come in and declare himself to be God.
Okay, and so what I'm asking is, there might not even have to be a building. There might just be an area laid out, and they're christening or having a ribbon cutting thing to begin to dig and build. So the Antichrist could come at that time and declare himself to be God because he got everything together so this could be built.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, on the desert, 40 days in the desert, they didn't have a temple out there. They had to build just like a makeshift. Like you see on MASH, a makeshift temple.
But the Jews will realize, well, not all Jews, but a number of Jews will realize that they have been deceived by another false Messiah. Yeah. You got to remember that when it was Jesus on the cross, and it was a choice, whether they were going to put Barabbas or Jesus on the cross, they chose Jesus, and Pilate washed his hands and he said, his blood's not going to be on my hands. And they said, and this was mostly the religious leaders, let his blood be on our hands and our children. And of course, that's exactly what happened, is that about 40 years later, then the temple was destroyed. But that still did not kick the Jews out of Israel. Then in 134, 135 AD, rather than choose Jesus as the Messiah, they chose another guy as a Messiah, that they thought he was the Messiah, and they followed him, and that's what got them kicked out of the whole land of Israel. That's when the Romans came in. They dispersed the Jews, not all of them, just like in the Babylonian captivity. They didn't take all the Jews, but they dispersed the Jews in 134, 135 AD, basically the ones that were healthy and could be used for healthy slaves and work. So again, not only did they lose their temple, but they lost their nation because they refused to accept Jesus as the Messiah. Now, by 134, 135 AD, how was Christianity working in Israel? It was going really well. But again, in the face of this booming new religion in Israel of Christianity and showing miracles, remember miracles happening in the early church, they refused to still believe, and so they chose another man and ended up losing another man that they thought was the Messiah, ended up losing their whole country then in 34, 35. And then the Roman emperor changed the name of Israel to Palestine in honor of not Palestinians. It's in honor of the Philistines. The Philistines, to honor them, who Israel had destroyed. The Philistines. They had destroyed the Philistines. So the Roman emperor at the time, in 134, 135 AD, to bring discouragement upon the Jews and to basically, remember Christianity, the name Christian was originally used as a mockery. And that's what Palestine is. Palestine is a mockery to the Jews that it's now the land of the Philistines. Philistines. Because I want to say Palestinians. But so the Philistines. So it's the name was made up. Palestine. By Hadrian, exactly. To basically say that the Philistines who opposed God actually were now the possessors of that land, even though they didn't exist. They were wiped out by the Jews.
More like just mock Jewish people
and mock God.
And their religion.
Yes.
That's part of what's going to happen in the last week. I think is going to be a replacement by the Messianic Jews. They're going to replace Christianity because they don't even believe that we worship the same Messiah because we get his name wrong.
Initially, I was excited about Jews coming to Jesus, Jews for Jesus, but more and more Messianic Jews are returning back to.
Well, they don't even claim Christianity.
No, that's what I'm saying. They're returning back to Judaism, and they're forsaking Christianity, and what's more importantly, they're not even acknowledging Jesus as God.
Right. They say that we worship a false savior because we can't even get his name right, and that we don't honor his Jewish roots.
Right.
So we're actually worshiping somebody that doesn't exist, and that's
Kind of like a Santa Claus.
Kind of like what?
God looks at the
like
God
Muslims
looks
with
at the heart.
Allah.
Yeah. Well,
that's why when people start, saying Jesus as Yeshua and such like that, there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh.
But it's ridiculous because I'm not Jewish. I'm an American Christian. His name to me is Jesus.
Well, and he has many names. He has many names, And every country calls them something different.
Yeah.
So when they freak out about that thing, know that they are differentiating between our Christianity and their Messiah.
I noticed this in the 70s. I went to Jews for Jesus events up in Chicago. I used to go to Jews for, and I was excited about it. But in the 80s, I started noticing more and more Jewish people that were supposedly born again turning back to Judaism, which I think is a forerunner of what's going to happen in Christianity. So,
wow.
Well, I got
People that are Christians now are going to turn to Judaism.
I got friends that
Well, they want to go
are
to
Messianic Jews, but they recognize Jesus as the Messiah.
oh yeah.
But whenever you talk to them, they won't say Jesus, even though
They just call him Messiah.
they call him
Yeshua.
which is okay.
I haven't heard it referenced that way.
But it's really it's differentiating on a point where they don't need to, because it's not drawing people together as Christians. It's making a different state as a Messianic Jew to a Christian. It's saying Messianic Jews know the real Jesus. The real Yeshua, but you just know Jesus.
Meanwhile, many of those born-again Christian Jews are changing what they believe about Jesus, that he's no longer God.
Right.
Now he's all of a sudden a prophet or a good teacher.
Yeah, well, that's a lot. Yeah, that's what you hear a lot. He was a good teacher.
They're heading more and more back to Judaism. And of course, when we have the Abrahamic Faith Center in another less than 2 years, where you have Christians and Muslims and Jews all worshiping God in the same place in Dubai.
What is it called?
The Abrahamic Faith Center
Where's that at?
in Dubai.
It's over by Saudi Arabia.
It's
It's going to be less than 2 years.
Isn't that part of
And I'm
Saudi
going to
Yeah, I
tell you
remember we
something.
were talking about
I'm going
that
to tell you
being built.
something.
But like
It's a
Alaska's
different, it's its own country,
yeah, it's its own.
but it's just like
I'm
a
gonna-
little island.
I'm going to tell you something.
Kuwait.
You'll
It's just
see
like a little
people.
island.
They're carved out of Saudi Arabia. basically.
You'll see people.
It's carved out of Saudi Arabia.
Christians. Just wait another 2 years. Christians will be heading to Dubai.
Now, it'd be goodbye, so it'd be.
Goodbye.
Now here's a question though. If you have that going on the same time the temple's being built, I mean, that's supposed to be the center of worship for the Antichrist here, not to die. I mean, it's kind of weird though. They have the faith center there, and then they have.
It's a substitute until something gets built in Jerusalem.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Wow.
Could be a 10.
Well, you see so much leaking into Christianity right now and they think that these objects that they use for worship bring some kind of supernatural power. It's like people blowing shofars in churches and talits and things like that. There's nothing wrong with those things, but it's not giving you any more than Jesus has already given you.
Right.
Hey, I wonder if the one in Dubai will push people in Israel to say, hey, now we got to beat these guys out and build a temple. I wonder if that'll push the.
It's a substitute.
When are
I
they
think it's
gonna
just a
open
substitute.
that, supposedly?
2 years. Well, less than 2 years. It's going to be in.
Are they
22.
building something?
They're building it now.
It'll be done in 2022.
Is that
2022.
done?
Or maybe as early as late 2021.
Hi, John.
And I just got one more story, and then we'll stop.
Not the top one.
Pope Francis summons Microsoft, IBM heads to Rome to sign call for ethics covenant, ensuring that the Vatican retains seat at AI technology table. Pope Francis calls Microsoft and IBM heads to come to Rome and to sign an agreement that the Vatican will be on the board and on the discussions of ethical treatment in the future using AI. Now,
Imagine that.
let's talk about that.
very good.
Ethical treatment. Rocket Man.
Rocket Man.
Rocket Man.
Rocket Man.
Okay. Story of Elton John.
Coming on here.
Very sexually explicit. R-rated. Okay, right? Who helped fund it? The Vatican.
Why doesn't that surprise me any?
They funded Rocket Man. Well, wait a minute. They funded another movie, which will make sense to you. In one of the week's more unexpected developments, the Vatican reportedly played a part in funding the Elton John biopic Rocket Man, in a sexually explicit R-rated musical drama exploring the beloved singer's relationship and struggles with addiction. According to a report published in the Italian daily newspaper, the Corriere della Sera, the Centurion Global Fund, that's what it's called, the Centurion Global Fund, an independent investment firm based in the LGBTQ affirming island of Malta. Did anybody know that? Malta, which is Malta has an interesting history. Malta has a way interesting history.
It's not in the Bible.
They contributed $1.1 million to the film's development. Rocket Man was released in May to strong reviews and was a financial success, making $195 million.
I haven't seen that movie.
It's good to be the Vatican in that movie. The Vatican owns a majority stake in the Centurion Global Fund, which is, as I said, seems to be funding films. Okay?
Imagine that.
They also gave $4.3 million to the latest Men in Black.
You're kidding.
Now, I want you to think about that. $4.3 million to the Men in Black, which turned out to be a financial flop, which is not so good to be the Vatican.
It was a flop?
Well,
Yeah,
remember,
well,
the Vatican said that we're brothers with the aliens.
There we go. Remember that they...
Nanu.
Remember the
Out of this
Vatican.
world, aren't they?
Remember, the Pope said...
Live long and prosper.
Remember, the Pope said that the aliens coming down could be our saviors. And remember that the Vatican has invested huge amounts of money on telescopes all over the world. They have a huge interest in outer space life coming down.
Apparently, there's been a rash of UFO sightings too. Supposedly.
Also remember that in the last days there'll be signs and wonders in the skies that will be deceiving people.
Yeah.
So let's take a look. The Pope has funded Rocket Man and Men in Black. He's funded homosexuality and aliens. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Because these are things that they're interested in.
I wonder what they're going to do that day when...
Yeah,
We're aliens. What are we doing here? We'll go back home.
So I thought I'd point those things out to you, some things. But we are going to... Sure. We're going to have...
You know, the Antichrist will... even the Muslims will be slapped in the face because remember the Antichrist will say you'll turn down all other religions. So I mean that includes the Muslims, so they're going to be kind of like what happened to our caliphate.
But remember that the 13th Imam, which is the caliphate, the 13th Imam will make a treaty for 7 years.
Yeah, but when he goes cares to tell God, it's going to be like, oops.
Well, it'll be the same thing. It'll be the same thing with Christians. It'll be the same thing with
But I'm just saying
Jews.
the Muslims are going to be really even more so, because they're looking for that
if they pull,
caliphate, and all of a sudden he says, "No, there's no caliphate. I'm God." Oops.
Yeah.
We had to.
But they won't be. The Muslims won't be nearly as disappointed as the Jewish people.
Well, no. But I'm saying they're going to have. They're not going to be king of the hill either. So.
That concludes this edition of The Last 7 Days. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Spreaker or GJRB. Join us next time here on Spreaker for another podcast of The Last 7 Days on GJRB. This has been a GJRB podcast presentation. Suicide's increasing among the youth, and many of them playing suicide games. This has to stop. Parents, watch your kids, and if you feel there's something going on and they are considering suicide, please talk to them, help them. And if it seems hopeless, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is 1-800-273-8255. They can help. It's free and confidential. Your call will be answered by a trained counselor in a local crisis center. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline can help. There's a problem on our roads today, and that is the safety of our children boarding and getting off the bus on busy roads. That problem is drivers who don't stop for a school bus when the arm is out, the lights are flashing, and the stop sign is out, leaving kids in danger of getting hit. Violators of this law could get a suspension of their driver's license and a $250 fine. When you see a school bus stop at a corner, letting off kids, stop 25 feet away from the bus. Don't take that chance. A public service announcement from the National Highway Safety Administration and GJRB Online. Strange things in the sky and around the world. Strange beings sighted. What's going on? All around us, conspiracy theories are being discussed. This is the show all about the strange things that are way out there. I'm Gary Russ, and this Way Out There is back with more weird stories of the strange and the bizarre. Keep looking up in the sky and let me know what you see. Way out there. Every third Friday of the month at 3 o'clock Central and anytime on GJRB. Another Radio Land coming soon on GJRB Online. This is the GJRB Online Network.